Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. Today, I am so happy to be with you to give you some insight and some guidance into this eclipse window that we are currently navigating. Eclipses can really bring an acceleration of change. They're almost like this time warp or portal that we go through a couple times a year. But what I've found is that when we're aware of the energy, we can really harness it and use it in a productive way. So that always starts with awareness. What is the energy? What is the invitation? What is happening? And today it's really exciting for me because we're bringing, Gary Caton is here, and he brings in the element of the fixed stars into his practice. We're going to talk about what that means, why it's important, and why you might also want to consider the fixed stars in your consideration of astrology. So we're going to do that here today. And just a little bit about Gary. He is a world-class astrologer who has been practicing for over 30 years, practicing and teaching and writing. He's also an author. He has written a book on Mercury. He is working on his second book. And he's also a Hermetic practitioner. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. And one of the things I was saying to Gary before we got started was what I've noticed is that some of the best astrologers, when they get to a point where they start to integrate other interests that they have dedicated themselves to, it's when their astrology really blossoms. So they have this solid astrological foundation and they're great astrologers to begin with. And then they weave in other elements and it becomes their own. It becomes like their own signature of astrological education and perspective. And I just love that. So Gary, first of all, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Amanda. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah. 100%.
Yes. And Gary's going to be an Inner Circle astrologer with us in February of 2026. So all of you Inner Circle members.
Aquarius season. Yay.
Yeah. You all have that to look forward to. And we're going to talk at the end. He'll tell us a little bit about the mastery class that he's going to be teaching as part of his month. So let's start here, though. What is a Hermetic practitioner and how do you weave that into your astrological practice?
Right. So the Hermetic arts, that they're called the Hermetic arts because the founder is Hermes, is Mercury, right? So Mercury is actually, even though a lot of people think Uranus and maybe some traditional people think Saturn, and those are not wrong answers, but in the and for several reasons. One of them because the Titan Atlas was his grandfather. Hermes was, the guy holding up the sky, right? Hermes was seen to be the god that gave astrology to humanity. And Hermes also gave alchemy and magic. And in fact, at least the magic is pretty much very obviously in the Hermetic mythos from the very beginning. Like everybody knows he stole the cows, right? But what did he do? He had a ceremonial magic. He practiced ceremonial magic in dividing up the cows. And by dividing it up into 12 portions, he was initiating a new order. That is one of the first times that we find that there were 12 Olympians. You see, so he was reapportioning the well, they call it the honors or whatever, Greek word. I'm blanking on the Greek word at the moment, but he then had a ceremony of magic where he sang a song by which he initiated this. And he sang a song to his brother Apollo, whom he had stole the cows from. And so there was this ceremonial magic aspect along with the divine thievery. So it wasn't mere thievery, you see, it was actually thievery to serve a ceremonial purpose. And the ceremonial purpose was basically in sort of dealing himself into the Olympian pantheon, right? Because he was born in a cave, in a remote cave, and he was kind of an outsider. And he earned himself a place amongst the immortals, but he also he also sang the song of, he kind of sang the song of the origins of all the gods. And in singing the beginning, he sort of restarted the whole thing. It was like a song of beginnings to begin anew, if you will.
Mm.
And so magic and then later alchemy have always been like sort of what you would call sister arts to astrology because they're all under the auspices of Hermes.
Mm.
And so I started actually with alchemy. I had an alchemy buddy in when I was living in Asheville, and he gave me a copy of the Emerald Tablet, which is a pretty short, cryptic verse about, you know, really what it is it's sort of like the creation of the universe in a paragraph.
Mm.
Essentially, it's almost like a Genesis type text. Um, and it's, you know, people, you can interpret it in terms of like literal lab alchemy of like you do this with that metal and you transform the metals and, you know, they're trying to transmute lead into gold and so forth. But really, to me, it's like it's sort of like that song of creation that Hermes sang in the ritual magic, but like more of a academic version, I guess.
Mm.
Um, and that's where we get the saying "as above, so below," right? It does, but it doesn't say that actually. It says that which is above corresponds to that which is below, and that which is below corresponds to that which is above. So there's a correspondence between above and below
Mm.
that's happening, and that's actually part of my first book was exploring the astronomy of Mercury, the planet Mercury, and noticing how the above and below alignments were coming together. When I first started on the alchemical journey, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. I was working with the asteroids. Demetra's book on asteroids, she talks about this process of transformation through the four main asteroids, and that like Ceres represents the process as a whole, and then Vesta and Athena and Juno represent three stages in the process of transformation.
Mm.
And as I was reading, I was like, I've been through that, right? Because before I became an astrologer, I was homeless and I basically like had to rebirth myself just intuitively. I sort of went through the process of rebirth and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was following, of course, I was following this archetypal pattern because it is the pattern of transformation. And when
Mm.
I realized, holy smokes, like this is the map for what I went through, I was like, wow, I've got to learn this so I can teach people who are going through what I went through and give them a map, because if I had had a map, my God, you know, how much easier may it have been and how much more complete may it have been and
Mm.
so on. That's really what alchemy is about. It's the art of transformation,
Uh, I
you
love
know?
that, Gary. I haven't heard it described that way. That is really clear. And I love what you're saying too about just being able to anchor the current transit that someone might be going through in a larger context, a larger unfolding story. And I agree with you. That helps people realize that it's not just this random thing that's happening to them that they just need to grit and grind through, that it's
Yeah.
actually a threshold that they're crossing over. And if they do that, then it actually helps them in the next transit, the next unfolding opportunity of transformation in their story.
Yeah, it's not in that sense, it's an opportunity, you know, it's an
Yes.
opportunity to grow and to you know, not everyone's a fan of Maslow. I happen to love Maslow because he's born 60 years before me, and that's a Jupiter Saturn cycle. So he's born in April 60 years before me. I'm also an Aries. So we have the same sun sign, the same Mars sign, the same Jupiter sign, the same Saturn sign, because that's the 60-year deal.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
but Maslow talked about self-actualization, right? So or actualization. the process of becoming fully you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and so yeah, like getting somebody through this one transit is great, but if we can kind of give them an idea of how getting through this transit serves them becoming fully them,
Yeah.
wow, that's a horse of a different color.
100%. I was so lucky in my beginning of astrology when I was in that dark night of the soul period to
Mm,
have astrologers who helped me in that way. Like it was so
yeah,
huge to have them reflecting back to me like, no, 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 no. This is an opportunity. You need to seize it. Like you are making really important choices right now that will set you up
mm,
for the rest of your life.
yeah,
It's huge. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I love all this. So speaking of thresholds, speaking of moments of change and opportunity, let's talk about this current eclipse window that we're in.
Yes.
And and then we can talk about the fixed stars and their role
All
in it.
right.
Let's just
Sounds
talk about
good.
the eclipse window in general.
Yes. Yeah, so I really like Adam Summer is one of the I don't know who coined the term, but Adam Summer is one of the people I know that uses the term dragon hole.
Yes.
Um, uh, it's pretty apt, the caput dragonis and cauda draconis, right? The head and tail of the dragon are what the nodes are known by. So that's where he's coming from, is like there's this dragon energy that's and the eclipses are arranged in families called Saros series, and they are like 1,000 year cycles, more like 1,500 year cycles. And when you follow them, they start at one or the other pole, and they slowly wrap themselves around the earth twice, almost like a Gnostic serpent, right? Wrapping itself around the egg. Have you ever seen that image?
Yes.
So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with like a family of dragons that are wrapping themselves around the earth and slowly alchemically transforming the earth and the people on it. It's and that's
I mean, that's
it's
that, but
like Merlin sword and sorcery kind of stuff, you know?
yes, but it goes back to what we were just saying. So, but more at a collective level that these eclipses are transformation opportunities that are transforming the earth itself and human collective consciousness itself. And yes, of
Yes.
course, we individually are part of that. That's fascinating. Okay.
100%, yeah. So there's a couple different so the Saros series, most people probably know that's like 18 years, right? So we would have had the last time that we had uh, you know eclipses in these signs, in this pair of signs, would have been 18 years ago, right? So
Mm.
2007. And then there's another series called a Metonic series, which is when the last time we would have had eclipses on these same exact dates would have been 19 years ago. So
Okay.
2006, there would have been, um, excuse me, what is it? September 7th is the lunar eclipse. Yeah. And so there would have been a lunar eclipse on September 7th in 2006 also.
No.
So we can begin to look at 2006 and 2007 to get that kind of bookending quality that I was talking about. Okay, what's going on now that can be seen to be an extension of that time,
Right.
you know? And I remember for me, that was kind of where I was wrapping up my career in mental health. And I was deciding, okay, I'm gonna like go all in on the astrology thing. I'm not gonna be part-timing this anymore. I'm just gonna like go for it.
Yeah.
And so that's and that wow. Like
So when these come back around, so if we all reference back to 2006, 2007 in our life, what were the storylines? What were the big themes that were happening? When they spiral back around, like is happening right now, what
they're
is it? Is it a
activating.
continuation of the story? Is it what is it?
Yeah, so yeah, if you think about it, like think about the Saros series as like this family of dragons that are slowly wrapping themselves around the earth. So there's like this. So it's so basically this eclipse that's happening on this September 7th is a brother or sister, or maybe you could say is like the child of the previous one in
Yep.
2007. There's a familial relationship. So it's not, so there will be, just like we tend to look like one of our parents, sometimes grandparents actually. It
Yeah.
skips. Yeah.
Right.
Um, but so there's a resemblance. So it's not the same exact thing. It's kind of like that saying that history rhymes, it doesn't repeat, it rhymes, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Good.
Yeah, there'll be themes that are coming back up. Um, and I mean, just really, if we just want to get into the mechanics of it, of course, it's activating the same sign, so it's activating the same part of your chart,
Good.
and again, with 2006, we're talking about the same day, so it's the same degree of your
Mm.
chart, which would be 15 degrees of Pisces. So, um, so yeah, like that house of your chart is being reactivated.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
right. For me, it's the second house. And so that idea, well, when I first started going full time in astrology, it really wasn't like as legit a way to make a living as it is now.
Good.
And I literally had to like be like, okay, like I think I'm going to go ahead and pay my mortgage off first. And then I'll make the leap because I don't want the pressure of trying to. I mean, I knew people who did it. I remember, Brenda Brush is a lady who was down in South Florida. She did astrology readings like all day, every day, 7 days a week,
Mm.
and raised a family of kids with it. So it's not like it wasn't being done.
Good.
And I respect the heck out of anybody who could do that, but I felt like I needed a little bit some more security, knowing, and so I kind of prepped myself for that, by taking the pressure off, resource wise. So you can look at the house of your chart that's being activated, but this is a north node eclipse, right? The lunar eclipse is a north node eclipse. So there's actually, it's the head of the dragon, right? So what happens at the head? We ingest stuff, right? Whether we're taking in information with our ears or our eyes or our mouth,
Mm.
we're receiving the input of the universe through our head.
Good.
And so there's new energy that wants to come into your life, and but it's like challenging. It's not like Venus knocking at your door and saying, "Hey, here's welcome to the neighborhood. Here's a basket of flowers and some yummy stuff." It's a dragon, right? He's gonna be like, "Hello, I would like you to transform now,"
Mm. Mm.
and so yeah, that's a good dragon voice.
Yes. So
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 yeah,
basically there's going to be new people, new experiences, new content in our life that we are being asked to assimilate, integrate, and potentially
yeah, and to level
transform
up,
through.
might
Level
be
up.
there might be challenges of like, hey, do you want to take this to the next level? And it
Mm.
might be a little bit difficult to recognize them as such. For
Mm.
instance, the time period when I'm talking about, the reason why I mean, I was really good at my job in mental health. I mean, I had contacts. I ran an entire child services unit for an entire county.
Wow.
Okay. And so I knew people in the schools, I knew people in the judicial system. I knew, and all of them loved me, and I was really good at my job, but I kept getting laid off because there were, the red tape of the organizational stuff, and that's the part that I couldn't stand.
Mm.
And after getting laid off for the second time in like 2 years, I was like, you know what? Maybe this is actually an invitation. Like, instead, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could have seen it a whole different way of like, you know, but I realized like, you know what? Maybe if I'm ever gonna fully dedicate my life to what I was thinking was astrology, ended up being the Hermetic arts. Even, so you see, so there was invitation. First of all, I had to see it as an invitation. Second of all, I didn't even realize the enormity of the invitation that I was receiving.
Yes. Okay. Well, everybody keep that in mind so that we
Yeah.
don't always know, and sometimes in hindsight, but being able to look back at these patterns or these trends through time, you can see that these breadcrumbs were there for you,
Yeah.
and I always think, wow, if we could just acknowledge them in the moment. Like if we can have the awareness while we're going through it that this is something significant, even if we don't know what that means yet,
Yeah.
I just feel like we might appreciate it more. We might engage with it at a deeper
And
level.
what does that look like, you know? So you have a dragon coming over for dinner. What are you gonna do? Well, what do you do when anybody comes over for dinner? You clean the house. You make, you clean up. You make room for the guest
Uh,
to receive. You see?
yes.
And so it's kind of counterintuitive, but one of the things that you can do to invite a north node eclipse in is actually to do the south node first and get rid of some junk that's in the way. And then that energy has room to come in and it has a place to sit,
Mm.
right? Because think about it just like in terms of just like energetic, like if something's being injected into a system, new energy, and there's no room for it,
Yeah.
something else is going to have to exit to,
Right.
and oftentimes that's what we notice if we're not really paying attention or if we're not astrologically in tune. We'll go, there's an eclipse and we'll go, oh, something was taken away from me. Oh, wow, this is such a negative experience.
Mm.
But it's like, like if we clear space for it, that and consciously decide ourselves, hey, you know what? Like there's this stuff in the corner over here I haven't been doing anything with anyways. Maybe if I clear some space, then this new energy that's coming in will be more welcome and I won't need that random, ejection of whatever, because a dragon's going to come in and his tail's going to hit stuff and stuff's going to go flying and it may be totally random whatever gets ejected.
Mm.
Whereas if we're consciously making room for it, at least if nothing else, it gives us the feeling of being a little more in control, and it gives us the feeling of actually of sacred, of what's the word? Hierotopy, making of sacred space.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know?
Yes. It creates an opportunity to ritualize it, to ceremonialize it, to make it sacred, to make it significant. Now we have another one coming up. So we're in between eclipses, right? So we had the North Node eclipse first, and then we're going to have the South Node eclipse second.
Yes.
And how is that? Because normally the South Node eclipse is the letting go one, right? Is the releasing one.
Right.
So how
Right.
does that work? Are we going to have to like release again, or like what? How does that energy work?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they worked in pairs. So
Okay.
it's like you might have to release to let in. You might have to let in order to release.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like,
Yes.
um, so the South Node eclipse is in Virgo, and it's in the last degree of Virgo. So those final degrees usually, now this is the weird part about it. We think of the last degree of a sign as a completion because planets go through from 0 to 29. But
Yes.
how do eclipses go through a sign? They go 29 first.
Oh, they go backwards.
The
That's
nodes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the beginning
This is
of.
actually the beginning of this, sign, this house being activated,
Mm.
and so um, there's a process of letting go that you don't have to finish this time around necessarily, right? There's going to be more eclipses in this area of your chart, and so you might need to just almost just get used to the idea that okay, there's some process of letting go that's being initiated here. And I just kind of need to accept that. And look, people talk about, surrender. Acceptance comes before surrender. like you have to just accept, okay, because denial is a huge component of like, and trying to fix it as it's happening, is a form of denial. And that's a very typical Virgo reaction of like, I can manage this, I can fix it, I can hold it together. I'm strong enough, I'm good, I'm competent enough, right? Like a lot of Virgos would naturally respond that way. I
A lot of
and
Virgos and
I
a lot of Capricorns too.
exactly. A lot of earth signs, yeah.
Yes, Earth
I
signs are
can
like,
manage.
oh,
I can keep
yeah,
it. I got this, right?
right.
It might just be, oh wow, I need to get ready for a little bit of messiness here.
Okay, but let's clarify. So we talked about the sorrow cycle and the metatonic cycle, and those are 18 years, 18,
18
19
and
years.
19, yeah.
But what you're talking about in terms of these eclipses happening in this Virgo area of our chart, that's 2.5 years, correct? So like
Well,
whatever
yeah,
whatever thing is being initiated as a potential letting go thing, it could potentially take 2+ years for that to completely unfold.
yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
that's exactly
Okay.
what I'm saying.
It's
Yeah,
not 18 years. It's 2 years. Yeah.
right, right.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
18 years since the last time we went through this 2.5 year thing.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Not to confuse you all, but yes, but I'm tracking. Yeah.
So
So,
yeah, it might just be that we just need to get used to the idea of it even would be enough
right.
almost for this first one.
Well, I find sometimes with certain situations that even just that game of like, what would I do if I lost that thing? How would I respond? Could I survive? Like, what would life look like? Even just doing
Mhm.
that can sometimes help me loosen the grip a little bit of like, no, I gotta keep this thing together. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to lose this thing. I would be really devastated. I'd be crushed.
Mhm.
And probably I'd find a way through it, you know,
Exactly.
depending on what the it is. But
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Well, I mean, you either find a way through it or you either willingly find a way through it or you're just sort of
have
forced to,
to find,
like life goes on,
right.
right? And
Mhm.
um so yeah, that's what comes to mind with like the 29-degree thing because it's
Mhm.
actually not a completion, it's a beginning, right?
Thank you for that. That is
Yeah.
really helpful context. So let's bring it to the fixed stars. I've recently, well, I'd say within the last couple of years, started to fall in love with the fixed stars in a new way because what I've noticed is that when astrologers come on this show and they do bring in the fixed star energy, first of all, it feels really accurate. It feels like it adds a really important layer to the conversation that is often left out. And I also feel like people inherently feel drawn to certain fixed stars like Sirius or Regulus or Arcturus or there's just like this like intrinsic draw. So I love incorporating them in the conversation. It feels like a very important backdrop to everything else that we talk about.
Yes.
Yes. I know I'm like talking to somebody who's a huge advocate for Pixar. So tell us what you see in terms of why you bring it into your practice and why you teach it so much. Like you're going to be
Well,
teaching on
yeah.
fixed stars for the inner
Yeah,
circle in
exactly.
February. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, this is sort of like an intro to the mastery class that we're going to be covering in February, and we'll probably, we'll sort of dial it into a particular star or two.
Yeah.
Um, but the stars in general, I mean, from going back even before astrology to like Plato. And that's the thing, like even scientists who embrace Plato as like the beginning of knowledge and Western, um, philosophy and so forth. Plato said, we come from the stars. So, I feel like there's almost a sense of knowing that we essentially are stars. It's like that's that song by Joni Mitchell that, we are stardust is literally true. The carbon in our bodies is made from an explosion in the nuclear furnace of a star. That's the truth of who we are. And so in Neoplatonic philosophy, what that means is that we came from the stars, and then there's this process of um, the spiritual becoming material.
Mhm.
And in that process, there's a sort of layers, and this gets into Kabbalah and some more like deep esoterica. But the long and short of it is that we come from the stars, and then we come through the sort of stairway or ladder or tree, if you will, of the planet, the planetary spheres. We take on the energy, the raiments, the clothing of the planets as we incarnate. Okay. And so that's how we become our birth chart. As we're coming in from the stars, we take on the qualities of our birth chart through the planets. Um, and then as we're leaving, we sort of, the idea is that we sort of, de disrobe on our way out, and the lessons that we learned and the karma that we had and so forth is then, and so there's this sense of like that by connecting with the stars, we're um sort of sort of like almost like E.T. phone home. Do you remember the movie E.T. where he was always
Yes.
like wanting to phone home?
Yes.
Like that's what it is. We're phoning home,
Uh,
and we're so I don't know how many Jyotish astrologers you have on here, but the word for planet in Jyotish is graha, right? It's like means grasping. So the thing about the planets is they move, they're always moving. Even when a planet is stationing, if you really study the astronomy, it's not stopping. It's usually going like this. So it's stopping motion this way, but it's then going down or up to
ugh,
turn. Like you
ugh.
can't, like even planets don't stop on a dime and turn.
It was like spin.
They have to go around. Yeah.
Right.
They don't just spin. They go around. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, there's this, so they're always moving, and and so the idea is that they're grasping the energy of the stars to bring it into materialization. They're intermediaries between the stars and us,
Wow.
right?
Yes.
So, um, so that whatever planetary alignments, that being transits essentially is what we're talking about, whatever those planetary alignments bring into our lives is, it's by definition ephemeral. That's why we call the tables that you used to consult when you did charts by hand, they're called ephemerides, because they're literally listings of ephemeral positions of the planets. And so the whatever manifests through that ephemeral energy is ephemeral, but whatever manifests through fixed star energy is connecting with something more timeless, more fixed, more eternal, more true to actually our immortal nature, if you will. If we are stars, there's a part of us that is godlike, and so it's sort of like our higher self, or however you want to imagine it.
Would you say
Um,
we're tuning more into our soul?
yeah, we're tuning into our soul, our the eternal part of our soul, actually.
Wow.
You
I
know?
mean, I don't know about all of you, but this is blowing my mind. It's just like,
Yeah.
and it's just the way that you're describing it is so clear. Like this, it just the mechanism by which it's all working,
That's
and
yeah.
it's
And
fascinating.
that was the philosophy that the world ran on for more than 1,000 years. Like everybody knew that. That was like the way that we accept science today.
Whoa.
That was the worldview for more than 1,000 years. Like that, like we come from the stars, we come in through the planets. The planets govern these ephemeral affairs of, all the world's a stage and we are players. So the planets are the players on the stage of the zodiac, essentially,
Wow.
right?
God, can you imagine how different we all would live our lives if that was the in all of our awareness all the time, just like part of our conversations? Like, oh yeah, of course we come from the stars. Of course we're here. Okay, amazing.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell us that you just totally set the stage for why we should pay attention to the fixed stars. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Now, how is that influencing this eclipse period of time we're in right now?
Yeah, so the eclipses themselves are not, dead on any particular fixed star. In the middle of Pisces there, we have the stars of Pegasus there in around the Pisces Aries point, and so in both of these eclipses, the solar eclipse is going to be activating, 29 Virgo, which means, the opposite to that eclipse is going to be Saturn and Neptune, which
Mm,
are clustered around the Aries point.
mhm,
So even though the eclipse itself is way over in Virgo, the stars of Pegasus are still going to be involved through their connection with Neptune and Saturn.
mm,
And there's a really tremendously rich story that goes along there. I mean, we could almost do a whole nother episode about that story because Pegasus was, of course, the child of Medusa.
mm,
Pegasus sprang out of Medusa, and then there's that whole story of how that happened, which was that Andromeda, the princess, got chained to a rock because her mother, angered Poseidon, and so there's this karmic sort of thing between the generations where there's sort of this there's this, and then Perseus comes along and kind of sets Andromeda free, and they go on to found, really, Persia is their son becomes like the founder of Persia. So so there's this mythic energy with Pegasus that has to do with like rising above what seems to be fated or karmic situations that are
mm,
not even of our own making, right? Andromeda didn't do anything wrong. It was her mother that actually made a boast that this is the story, that I'm not saying, that I was there or anything, but the story, the story is that she boasted and angered Poseidon, and then Poseidon sent this monster to ravage the Ethiopian coast and so forth. And then Pegasus is sort of this um, liberating energy that comes along to sort of extract Andromeda from this situation that she was stuck in, this karmic situation that wasn't even of her own making. It's sort of like, that biblical saying, the sins of the parents are visited upon the children,
mm.
It was
Yeah.
literally like that in this story. And and so Pegasus represents like this ability to call upon a higher power, if you will, that's sort of able to um,
Mm,
soar above that in some way and to get us out of our stuck places with these. Um, and there's a lot of conversations about that right now. There's a lot of people talking about ancestral trauma and, colonization and the patterns of human, uh, karma and stuff that's been going on for however many generations and so on. Um, and anytime you're talking about the outer planets, you're already talking about generational energies by definition, right? Because, Neptune is 165 years, which is two full human lifetimes.
mm,
Um, and so, yeah, it feels like there's an invitation maybe in that regard to see if these eclipses are activating that kind of story that has a generational, or it could even be like a cultural um, um, mythos that's being activated where you're like through no fault of your own even necessarily, where you're sort of subject to or stuck in some kind of uh, not pleasant pattern. She was literally chained to a rock, right? Andromeda was chained to a rock to be sacrificed to this monster.
mm,
Um, and that there might be a way to be liberated from that through some kind of higher divine energy that's available.
Like sometimes when I hear the mythology and the stories, it's kind of like, yeah, but like that's not real. It didn't really happen. Like what does that have to do? Like what does that actually have to do with real life? How do you, because I know you bring a lot of mythology and you connect with a lot of mythology in your practice of astrology, and I'm sure
Yeah.
alchemy and magic as well. How do you bring that in a way that's relevant? Like, do you actually think these things happened? Did they actually happen? Are they stories that teach us things? Like, what is their role?
Did what you dreamed last night actually happen?
Yes. Thankfully, not in this reality that I'm aware of. Kind of had some disturbing dreams, but yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
did the plays of Shakespeare actually happen? I mean, it's kind of the same conversation as is astrology real?
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, does does there have to be like an actual beam? Does Neptune actually have to be beaming a physical beam into my eye or heart or wherever to for it to be doing something? You know what
mm,
I'm saying?
yeah.
So these stories are a cultural heritage, right? Basically, right? They're a cultural heritage from Greece. And if you look at them like dreams,
Mm.
I mean, I think everybody's had that experience of being caught in a drama that's not of their making. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure everybody's had that experience.
that's actually one of the hardest ones I feel, where it's just like, oh my God, what did I do to cause this? It's like, well, nothing. I'm just kind of here in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people or whatever it
And
is.
it's really difficult because A, you feel like this is not mine. Why should I be the one to figure it out? But but then on the other hand, if I don't, who will?
Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think they're useful in that way. Like it's a metaphor, like, it's in the same way that watching a play, and again, like one of the main functions of watching a play for the Greeks was the catharsis, like an emotional release of
Mm,
same reason we listen to music. Like did, one of my favorite progressive rock bands is Rush, right? Like I was a kid in the 70s, right? So Rush was really big back then. And they had this album called 2112. It's this whole like mythos and this story. Did that really happen? Pretty sure not, because it's set in the future.
mhm.
But is there stuff in there that I can like learn from and resonate with and like and see to have relevance to life? Absolutely, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
I have that
yeah.
with I have that with an Imagine Dragons album. Like literally, I
Perfect.
feel like every single song was like describing this period of time in my life. It was like, whoa.
Everybody has that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So you
Yeah.
can do the same thing with the myth and just like looking at it like a dream or a piece of music or a play or a
Hmm.
movie, what have
Yeah.
you, that
Yeah.
there's that it's a in psychology they call them projective instruments, right? That's what those ink blots or whatever, right?
Yes.
Like, you look at the ink blot, what do you see? Is anything actually there other than an ink blot? No, actually.
Hmm.
But you see stuff, and what you see says something about your state of mind at that
Right.
time.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's kind of the same thing. It's like when you read that myth, what do you see? I mean, for the longest time I saw, wow, that's some really sick stuff, yo. That's what I saw because there's a lot of sort of toxic stuff that's passed down from father to son, from I'm sure the same way. I happen to be a man, so that's what I see. But um, and and so when you're kind of caught up in dealing with that, it's like, man, I do not actually want to hear about that story, right? I'm like, I've been trying to um, get away from that my whole life.
Mm.
And so I get it. Like it's not pleasant necessarily, but the fact that like there's this sort of cathartic resolution to the story, there is an outlet. And it's actually, Greeks are famous for tragedy. Like there's a lot of times there's not a happy ending.
Mm.
This happens to be one of the few. There's a pretty happy ending. Andromeda and Perseus get together. They make a family and they found an empire actually.
Mm. Mm.
So, as far as Greek stories go, nah, it's about as good as it gets.
Like, love and success at the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so, just kind of like tuning into that and realizing, like, again, what is some of the biggest lessons of astrology, like knowing when people find out about transits, oh, so this too shall pass.
Mhm.
Well, one of the lessons that I would take here is like if I'm going through something like that in that story, I'm not alone. Like
Mm.
it's kind of a universal. And I know, yeah, it's like, oh, misery loves company. Well, okay, great. We're all miserable together. But hey, knowing that, that takes you out of a place of like, this is my fault. Because that's what children tend to do with trauma. They
Yeah.
tend to blame themselves.
Right.
Even if like it's very clear in the story, it was not her fault.
Mm.
But psychologically, children tend to say, okay, this must, because they don't have a way to conceive of the world as this big thing yet. So it
Mm.
must have something to do with me. So I must have done something wrong. So how can I be more of a good girl or boy to figure this out? Right?
Mm. Yeah, I love tapping into the archetypal nature of these stories and seeing how both the cautionary tales involved in them, but also getting clear on the repeat patterns that we as humanity, like these stories that we've just been playing out, and then making a choice. Do I want to feed that story anymore? I remember I had a thing with Juno one time, and I was in a situation where I realized I was playing Juno's story of wrath toward other women. It was a very specific situation.
Mm,
And I went, God, do I really want to feed that anymore? I mean, I have two daughters. Wouldn't I like to model something different for them?
wow.
And if I was going to get out of that storyline, what do I need to do? Like, someone has to cross the chasm and be like the bigger person in these kinds of situations where there's jealousy and resentment and all these things, right? So I,
Yes.
I do feel we can become aware of like, okay, that story's old. Like, let's not do that anymore. What's another way we can move beyond those narratives that have been happening for thousands of years?
Exactly. And that's what Pisces represents to me is this inherent liberative quality that we can rise above this narrative of getting stuck in this, um,
Human drama.
so and so said something and so is mad about it
Right.
and
And
yeah.
now we must go for
And
revenge. And then
and
everybody gets, yeah, it's just, yeah. That's what,
no, like let's get above that somehow and let's kind of rise above that and look for a new story.
yeah.
Which is what they did in the end. They founded a new empire.
Mm. Gary, just now summarizing, looking at these eclipses, we never said the date of the second
Yeah,
eclipse.
that's right. So September 7th at 15 Pisces, that's the North Node eclipse,
Right.
right? That's the new energy coming in. And then September 21st at 29 of Virgo, that's the South Node eclipse. So that's the energies going out, being released.
And which one's a lunar and which one's a solar?
Oh, sorry. Yes, the lunar eclipse is the 15 Pisces North Node.
Okay,
And the
first
solar
one.
eclipse is September 21st, and that's the South Node eclipse. So, lunar eclipses typically, because they're a full moon, that implies relational type energy. So it usually involves other people and like mirroring things to us and so forth.
Mhm.
And then the solar eclipse, typically, because it's a union of the sun and the moon, and the sun is more egoic in nature. It's typically more personal of like, okay, I this is about me and I have to clear something out. basically. You know, there's something in my life that needs clearing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I
You're
am
welcome.
so looking forward to having you back as our guide in February of next
Me
year.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's gonna
be
be fun.
my fourth time around.
Fourth time. Amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're going to go deeper on fixed stars. Do you know which fixed stars you're going to focus on yet?
We're going to be talking. So I hear that you had Harmony on recently to
Yes.
talk about Jupiter with Sirius.
Yes.
And that's really cool because guess what? Jupiter's going to be coming back over that star in February.
Amazing.
Yeah. So and there's another star that's in that same area of the sky that's called Canopus.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
more southern star. And so we're going to talk about that alignment a little bit too.
And then also starting to learn how to interpret fixed stars in our own charts, correct?
Yeah, to
Yeah.
interpret them and work with them and even to invoke them. You know,
Mm.
we can begin to sort of even if you're not necessarily ready for ceremonial magic in terms of like making talismans or something, you can sort of consciously, um,
Phone home.
yeah, that's it.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah,
good. So we're going to learn how to phone home. I love it.
right.
Thank you so much. This has
You're
been such a
welcome.
pleasure, such a delight. I feel like
Yeah.
we've gotten that bigger picture, eagle's eye perspective on this portal of time that we're navigating. I hope you all have found it helpful and relevant. Let us know in the comments. If you haven't subscribed yet to the show, now would be a great time to do that. Also, if you haven't yet joined us for Ricky Williams' class on the strongest planet, we just had the first class. It's so amazing. This concept of connecting with your strongest planet to me kind of feels a little similar to starting to integrate fixed stars. So moving beyond the zodiac conversation and really focusing on the planets as individual entities and understanding which are your strongest, which are your weakest, what does that mean? How do you apply that in your life? It feels similar to like going even
Yeah.
further and going into the fixed stars and what does that mean? So if you're interested in this, it's still available. It's still available at the lowest pricing we'll offer for this class. So go ahead and go to astrologyhub.com/strongest planet. It's not too late to join. You'll get the recording of the first class, and we'd love to have you in that as well. Anything else, Gary?
No, it's just great to be back. It's great to see you and great to be back with the Astrology Hub crew. Will we be doing a forecast in
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, you mean like a the forecast panel
the
event for
yearly, yeah, the panel
2026?
thing?
Yes, and I have something that I'm percolating on. Gary, I've been wanting to do a live forecast panel event forever. So I'm like, how do we do this? And I'm thinking that maybe there's some element that is actually live where we could have a live audience and we could
Wow.
have some astrologers there live. And I'm thinking about coupling it with my book launch party, which
Wow.
so it would be in the Bay Area
Congratulations.
probably.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't think y'all are coming out to Hawaii, although I would love to have you out here. But
Ugh.
anyway, yes, I know. So I'm thinking about no matter what, we're going to be doing a forecast event. No matter what, an element of it will be live streamed and available around the globe. And maybe we're going to pull off a live event this year and actually have astrologers in a theater or like a really cool loft space or something and
Wow.
get to meet people in person.
That would be so cool.
Yes,
Yes.
right? Yes,
Yay.
yes,
At any event, I'll see y'all around forecast time and then
exactly.
later
Yeah,
for the for my inner circle month.
you got it. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. I'm so delighted that we get to have these conversations here every single week. It's so fun to know that there's people like you out there who get just as lit up about this as I do, as Gary does. So thank you for being here and thank you for being a part of this entire experience that we all get to have. And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.